It is now my pleasure to welcome the President and CEO of the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, which is Northeast Ohio's largest hunger relief organization, none other than Kristin Warzocha. Since becoming CEO in 2014, Kristin has been directing the organization's efforts to provide nutritious food and support to more than 1,000 member agencies and programs. Last year, the food bank served an incredible 400,000 plus Northeast Ohioans across 6 counties. Kristin's leadership is truly legendary. She's earned many, many accolades, including Crane's Woman of Note, the AJC Isaiah Award for Human Relations, and many, many more. She has also been a long-term leader within the CLC family, including her membership in the 2002 class of Cleveland Bridge Builders, the 2010 class of Leadership Cleveland, and much to my sad disappointment, in June of this year, she wrapped up an incredible 9 years of service with the CLC Board of Trustees. Don't worry, Kristin, we're not letting you go. Today, we will be discussing the substantial impact that has been happening to SNAP benefits, both from reduced federal funding as well as the recent government shutdown that led to the temporary cessation of all SNAP benefits. While the benefits have fortunately resumed, the ripple effects on families, communities, and the broader social services network have been significant. And Kristin and her colleagues at the food bank are on the front lines. Kristin, we are so grateful for your willingness to speak with us today and to help us better understand both the current needs and how we can help support the work of the food bank. Welcome, Kristin.
Well, Becky, it is a true pleasure to be with you all today. Thank you so much for having me. I am, as you all may have assumed by the introduction, an enormous fan of the Cleveland Leadership Center. And so it is a real honor to join you for this leader lunch break. I also am delighted to see so many good friends on this Zoom, certainly members of our extraordinarily talented team at the Greater Cleveland Food Bank, but also our partners, donors, board members, former board members, and just folks out there in our community doing amazing work in a lot of different ways. So thank you for taking some time from your lunch hour to hear a little bit more about what the Greater Cleveland Food Bank has been up to recently. Now, I want to start by setting the table a bit. As I look at the guests here, I know that many of you are very familiar with the food bank, but for those of you who are not, last year, the Greater Cleveland Food Bank provided enough food for more than 53 million meals to a network of 1,000 partner programs in a 6-county service area. Together with those partners, we served more than 400,000 unduplicated, so that means unique individuals in our service area. That was more than 1 in 5 people. So if you just let that sit for a moment, 1 in 5 people in the 6 counties we serve turned to the food bank or to one of our partner agencies at some point last year for help. And our job is to make sure that when a neighbor goes into a local food pantry or hot meal site or after school program for low-income children, that the food that they need is available. That is our mission, and it is a critically important role for us to play. We get food from a variety of different sources, which have changed over the years. But last year, we got food from the state of Ohio, from the federal government, the USDA, the Department of Agriculture, who has historically bought surplus product from farmers nationwide to support farmers and distributed that food through food banks and school breakfast and lunch programs. We also, of course, brought in donated food from the food industry, which is typical food banking. And we did purchase food as well. And it feels as though we're purchasing more food all of the time to try to meet what continues to be very high need. All right, so I covered that information, but I think I was talking about the fact that we are seeing a high level of demand, but the demand has never been higher than early November of this year. And the reason for that was the longest federal government shutdown in history. and the fact that SNAP benefits were paused, which was unprecedented. That has never happened in the history of the SNAP program. And it's never happened because the program is so important. For every one meal provided by a food bank nationwide, and this is all of our food banks together, SNAP provides 9. SNAP is our country's first line of defense in the fight against hunger. It keeps people from going hungry, and it's been operational for decades and has been, frankly, a very successful program. When SNAP benefits were paused in the month of November, it really did create a food insecurity crisis. More than 200,000 people in our 6-county service area receive SNAP on a monthly basis, and the average is $6 per person per day. And it helps provide a lot of meals on a lot of people's tables. I think there's been a lot of information floating out there about SNAP. I always want to take the opportunity to tell people that not only is this a very effective program, but that 77% of households receiving SNAP benefits have someone in them who is working, and that the overwhelming majority of SNAP benefits go to households with a child, a senior, someone with a disability. And to be eligible for SNAP, you need to have net income of less than 130% of poverty. So a lot of the families receiving this benefit really, really do need the help. When SNAP benefits were paused, we saw an increase in demand, as did our partners, absolutely immediately. And again, we see our role as being a consistent source of healthy food in any circumstance for our community. And so we kind of immediately realized that we had a responsibility to do as much as we possibly could to try to meet this increased demand for food. And we were able to do that in a number of different ways, thanks to a number of investments that have been made over the last 5 years or so. We opened 3 years ago a new partner distribution hub on Coit Road with more storage space, a larger production kitchen, more cold storage, and that allowed us to really increase the amount of food that we could distribute to our community. We distributed about 6.5 million pounds of food this November in 1 month, setting records almost every day for daily distribution. And of that food, that was a significant increase from the prior year. And of that food, about 4 million pounds of it was purchased in the month of November, a huge increase from the amount of food we typically purchase. And we were able to do that because of community support. This community rallied, leaned in, and contributed in such extraordinary ways. And we were able to take those donated dollars that were coming in and immediately begin purchasing food by the truckload for distribution. We bought about 10 times more purchased food in November of 2025 than we did in November of 2024. And it was all made available to our partners at no charge so that there were no barriers, no financial barriers for them to access the food that we had available. 2 years ago, we opened a community resource center. Many of you have had the chance to see it. It's in our former facility on South Waterloo Road. Not only do we have a beautiful shopping style healthy choice market that is a food pantry where people can shop with a shopping cart. Anyone who's 200% of poverty or less is income eligible, but we also have 17 other nonprofit organizations co-located there working with us to help address other challenges for people in need of food and some of the underlying causes of hunger. And so because we had that facility open, it's been open for 2 years now, we were able to expand hours, shopping hours every day. We were able to bring more people through. And in 1 week, we served 6,000 people at the Community Resource Center. And that was really, of course, a new record and something we were very proud to be able to do. I kept having people ask me if we were going to reopen the Muni Lot. Some of you might remember these huge mass distributions in the municipal parking lot back during the pandemic. The good news was that even though the demand was high, All of our partners were open, they were ready to serve, and we had a community resource center that people could come to up to 6 days a week instead of just 1 day a week in the Muni lot, and they could make selections for their family. It's a much better option, and something we're proud to provide. Now, I mentioned those partners who stepped up in extraordinary ways. So many nonprofits in our community, from local churches to social service agencies, did larger distributions, added extra distributions, pulled in more volunteers to help us meet demand. And we are so grateful to them for doing that. 15% more people were served over the course of November, much, much higher in the first couple of weeks of November. And 38% more new families were served. These are people who had not needed emergency food in the past. We also got a lot of calls from people who didn't know where they could go to get help. We've got a help center where we've got folks on the phone from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day. They extended their hours. We saw a 108% increase in calls to our help center in the month of November. And overall, when we think about kind of the pounds we distributed in the month of November, I think there are two important things to know. One is an ongoing challenge, which is that because of changes in funding for state and federal food programs, we knew that we'd have less state and federal food to distribute in the month of November, and frankly, every month in the year ahead. So we had already started planning for that to try to be able to do some extra buying to replace that. We got a wonderful commitment. Every food bank in Ohio did from the governor. Some of that food started coming in November, but a lot more of it's going to come in December and January, which will be extraordinarily helpful. And then, you can see this big increase in the amount of donated food that we were able to distribute, again, because of truly extraordinary community support and the donations that came in quickly and allowed us to turn them around quickly. Now, the challenges aren't over. At the Leadership Cleveland holiday party last night, I was asked by many in the crowd, many friends, what has happened? Have things returned to normal? What I said is that certainly now that SNAP benefits have gone out, they were pushed out with the end of the shutdown. Now that benefits are out, people have that as a resource, but the need is still high. We're very grateful for the end of the shutdown. We are still serving more people than we did during the pandemic. And that is driven by higher costs of living. It's driven by higher food costs, and it's driven by a lot of folks are really feeling a financial pinch. New data out from PNC tells us that 67% of American households are living paycheck to paycheck. And so if you're a federal worker and your second paycheck just didn't come in because of the shutdown, or if you're, a worker at a for-profit organization who had your hours reduced or got laid off, or had another sort of family challenge, it's not long before folks find themselves in need of help. The other thing is that there are some other changes that have been made to SNAP, changes back in the One Big Beautiful Bill that passed on July 4th, that have been a little overshadowed by the shutdown in general. There are additional reporting requirements, reporting requirements that are coming our way, which means that people who are receiving SNAP from the program are going to have essentially more paperwork to submit to their local county. And if that paperwork gets missed, if they don't report on time, even if they are working, they are very likely to lose their benefits. Legal immigrants are losing benefits. And so, this high level of need we expect will continue well into 2026. The good news, again, is that we live in an extraordinary community full of a lot of people who care, who want to make sure that their neighbors have access to the nutritious food they need. And because of the additional capacity that's been built, and because of the great planning, our wonderful volunteers, and an incredible, incredible hardworking team who stepped up this month like I have never seen before. Many of them are on this call. I think we're in a good position to try to continue to respond.
Kristin, there is no question you have one of the best teams in town, because you clearly could not do all that you do to serve both agencies and people without an unbelievable team. But I am curious to understand, with all of this increase in demand, are there changes that you have to make about your operations, staffing, volunteers, additional partners in order to absorb all of this incredible increase of demand?
Absolutely. We in 2025, we completed a new strategic plan and we also completed a scenario plan, knowing that we live in our uncertain times, right? And changes could be coming at any moment of all sorts. And so I will say that that process was incredibly helpful for us. During that process, we really leaned into saying we need to be a consistent source of support to our partners and to our community, even in challenging times, even if public food is down, right? Even if demand is up. And we tried to craft a plan to allow us to do that. Now, I never expected we'd be approving our scenario plan in August and using it in November. But we did. It was available, and we jumped right to that plan, and we simply started, doing the things we said we would do on the list. And thankfully, the community responded with support, with financial donations and with volunteers. But we made a number of changes that I think will probably stick, related to how we provide service. And, we're learning as we go. We're an organization that's really committed to continuous improvement. And, every challenge is also an opportunity to learn and to do something different and
Yeah.
better.
For
This
sure.
one has been
What
as well.
there in the chat, there was a related question to what you just talked about in terms of lessons learned from this
Yeah.
recent shutdown. The scenario testing, clearly your timing could not have been more prescient to get it done. Were there any, and you mentioned a few things that may stick among these changes that you implemented. Anything in particular you might put a finger on that worked that you would continue and consider as a good lesson learned?
Yeah, I think in challenging times, sometimes we have to have the confidence to just really move fast. We were watching the shutdown for all of October. We knew that we were going to start to see federal workers as we saw paychecks being missed, for some federal workers. We were concerned about SNAP, but truly, I kept thinking this has got to end by November 1st. This has got to end by November 1st. And it was late October, and we had a board meeting, and we were starting to get worried that maybe it wouldn't end by October 1st and that SNAP benefits could be at risk. And so, we asked our board at the October board meeting for permission to do our first $500,000 unbudgeted purchase of food before any gift ever came in, before we started asking for gifts, because we didn't know for sure what would happen. But we did feel like we had to get some food flowing early because, getting food in takes time. We bid it out nationally. We have a ton of partners and they are willing to bend over backwards to try to help us, but it doesn't appear the next day. And we wanted to make sure we had more food on November 1st in case we needed it. And I am so glad that we did that. And also glad that, frankly, our board gave us a lot of flexibility throughout the process, so that, as things continued and as dollars came in, we just continued to place order after order, again, to try to make sure that our partners had the food that they needed in challenging times.
So you mentioned partners several times. Have you brought on any new partners in this recent sort of past time? And thank you, Mike Parks, for that question.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. Hey, Mike. One partner that I have been really excited about doing more work with is called Resource Cleveland. Many of you may be familiar. Their executive director is Leadership Cleveland grad. They serve refugees and newcomers to our city. And the fact is that many refugees and newcomers are now going to be losing SNAP benefits. And that's a really high risk population. And so they have been extraordinary in their work. We created a partnership, and we'd been talking about it for a while, but really deepened our partnership, I guess, back in October, and then saw all of the things that they were able to do to serve people really ever since. And that's going to be an ongoing challenge. And they're going to be a wonderful ongoing partner as we work together to make sure that all Northeast Ohioans in need of food have access to it.
That's great. And yeah, Patrick Curran's class of 25, good shout out to him. Kristin, I'm curious, the number, the fact that you shared that you had, let's see, 1 in 4 of visitors that have
Yeah.
come recently are new first timers.
Mhm.
Are there any, you mentioned immigrants and newcomers as being sort of a new target, a sort of a growing need population. Are you seeing other populations in particular where there is growing need on the food security side of the house?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been working pretty closely with Global Cleveland for the last couple of months, as well as Resource Cleveland and some other refugee serving organizations to identify hotspots in our community where a lot of immigrants live and to connect people to food pantries and partners in those neighborhoods specifically and try to make sure that they have the food that they need. That is certainly a high risk population, and there will be more need with that population because so many people will lose their SNAP benefits. But in addition to that, I've been with a food bank for more than 25 years now. And my experience is that it feels as though every year we serve more seniors, people who have worked their entire lives, um, but have grown older, are trying to age at home, and are living longer and struggling to keep up with increased costs of living. I met a woman at our community resource center, I don't know, a couple months ago. She was waiting for a ride after she had shopped. She was in her 70s. She was disabled. She'd spent her whole life in food service, working in college cafeterias. And she told me that she was getting by on her Social Security, her Medicaid, and her SNAP. And she had almost no other income. She had kind of outlived her savings. And so she was standing there with her walker. She had her groceries in her walker while she was waiting for her ride. And she explained to me she had picked up a part-time job at Walmart to try to bring in some more income. And she was really nervous about how she was going to get by. And sadly, we're hearing a lot of stories like that. The fastest growing group of recipients at food pantries nationally is working families, is the other thing. And so we hear stories every day. We talk to people every day who are working full time, but they have 3 kids at home or 4 kids at home, and they just can't make ends meet anymore. They just can't do it. The costs of living are so high, and there's one family emergency, and they end up in line at a food pantry and never thought they would be there.
Kristin, the work that you and your colleagues at the food bank and all your partner agencies do, it's so critically important. It's hard work. It is emotionally draining work. And I'm curious about how you as a leader both build resiliency in yourself as well as in your team, because these are not easy days for people to show up and to give their best. As proud as you are, I know, and as committed as people are to the community, it's hard work. So how do you manage through this?
You know, it is really hard work, and we are blessed to have a team that cares so deeply about our mission. And so, I don't have to ask them to work hard. It's what they know is needed, and it's what they step up to do on their own in challenging times. We do try to take at least a little breath as we get through challenging times. We try to recognize that work. We try to recognize each other, and they are great at recognizing each other. We just had, a 4-day weekend, which could not have come at a better time. I will tell you, I think a lot of folks had the opportunity to really relax a little bit before they came back to work on Monday and hopefully came back feeling rejuvenated. And I meditate every morning using the Calm app, which is something that is available to our whole team. I started doing it during the pandemic, and I feel like just 7 minutes a day every morning has made a really big difference for me. And I know we've got other people on our team, not everybody, but some other people on our team who use it as
Yeah.
well.
That's fabulous. There are lots of questions in the chat about what you need and about the opportunity to bring in new partners, the opportunity to bring in new volunteers. Do you need more volunteers? I'm sure that the answer is yes, yes, and yes. So I'm curious, is there opportunity, Kristin, what's the best way for people who are interested in finding either ways to volunteer their time or to create a new partnership organizationally with the food bank, what do they
Mhm.
do next to reach out to you and or your
Sure.
colleagues?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of information available on our website at clevelandfoodbank.org. On our website, you can sign up to volunteer. You can actually find an open shift at a time that works for you, and schedule in real time, whether you want to work at our community resource center, whether you want to repack or make meals at our partner distribution hub, or take on another project. Those are all available. You can make a financial contribution on our website or start a virtual food drive. If you've got a whole group of people you'd like to get involved, you can sign up to become an advocate. And you can also learn more about becoming a food bank partner agency. So, I mentioned we've got 1,000 partners. We provide food to any nonprofit in Northeast Ohio in our 6-county service area that provides food to people in need at no cost, following civil rights guidelines, and equitably, and who is able, and willing to have some food safety handling and things like that. And we've got a whole team led by Von Treese Jones, who's on this call, who vets new partners and gets them signed up. So we are always looking for collaborative opportunities and to engage our community in new ways. And we'd love to hear from you.
Fabulous. So let me shift just real quickly. We've got time for just two more questions. One more from the chat. Are there challenges, Kristin, that you and or the food bank face that might not be apparent to the public? Anything that you're struggling with that you or working through that you would want the public to know about?
I think they're all different kinds of challenges, and there are also opportunities. Certainly, um, one of the challenges that we have seen this year is some changes in funding, which many nonprofits are working their way through, and changes in funding specifically for state and federal food programs. Um, and we're grateful that we live in a generous community so that we can buy food to make up for some of those reductions. Not every food bank has that blessing of living in a community as generous as ours. I think the other thing is just about awareness. Sometimes there's misperception, and there's misinformation out there about who needs help from a food pantry or how the SNAP program works. And so I think we're always trying to raise awareness, and to educate our community on why this work is so important, and why people might end up turning to the food bank or to one of our partner agencies for help.
Great. Kristin, my last question for you is to end us on a high note.
Yes.
There have been obviously a lot of challenges and a lot of issues to work through. As you reflect back on 2025, what's a really happy moment for you? Give us something personal, professional, don't care, but give us one of your favorite happy moments from 2025.
Oh my gosh. You know what? I will say there have been so many of them, and many of them involve our team. I am just so proud of this group of colleagues that I get to work with, their passion, their commitment, their love for the work, and how they have fun together. This is a place that we really are able to have fun together. And it's a privilege and a pleasure to be part of this team.
I love it. Work hard and play hard together. It's great team building. Kristin, thank you so much for joining us today. I know that everyone in our virtual audience and those who see you in the replay are just so grateful for the work that you do every day and that your colleagues do. So thank you for making time for us.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks everyone for joining us.